Hi everyone, my name is Dr. Christine Gilbert and I'm the director of the Hydroelasticity Lab. My PhD student, Javad Javaharian, is going to take you into our lab in just a moment. We are excited to show you what we do in our lab.
Hello, welcome to the Hydroelasticity Lab. This is Javad Javaharian. I'm a fourth year PhD working under Professor Gilbert. In our department, we have different areas to study different aspects of ocean engineering. In this lab, we focus on the experimental study on fluid structure interaction. We have great facility and equipment here that were the main motivation for me to choose Virginia Tech for my graduate studies. So the first project is to study the slamming of high-speed craft, and specifically the high-speed craft that have flexible bottom structures. So for that, we have this great big tank here. It's made of acrylic sheets. It's transparent, so we can see through it. We have a setup which is made of 80-20. It is located on top of the tank. This setup provides us with the pure vertical motion. So we can have different models, we can drop them using those two glide rails that is already implemented into the setup, and we can test different aspects of the water entry of the or that impact of the model with the water. So here we have a wedge model, that the wedge represents a section of the high-speed craft. We have plenty of sensors inside the model. We have different pressure sensors to get the hydrodynamic pressure. We have accelerometer to measure the acceleration. We have potentiometer. We have two high-speed cameras located on top of the setup. And with that, we use a technique which is called stereoscopic digital image correlation to get the full field structural deformation of the panel during the impact. Because this wedge model that we have, it has a flexible bottom structure. We also have another camera located underneath the tank. Because the tank is transparent, that looks at the bottom of the structure and that capture the contact water line that we call it spray route, again during the impact. All of these measurements are synchronized using the DAC system, another facility that we have here, because we want to make sure that we have a synchronized measurement, because we want to study the interaction between different specs of this specific problem. All right, so now the wedge is attached to the electromagnets. So now we are going to use the DAC system here. So we have a DAC system, a pulse generator. When I press the button, we cut the power of electromagnets, and basically we let the model to release and to drop. And at the same time, the DAC system orders all the instruments, including the 3 high-speed cameras that we have, to start acquiring the data. So get ready. We're gonna drop it in after countdown. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so now the test is done. All of the measurements are saved through the DAC system. Now let's go and take a look at the results.
So we talked about the importance of the slamming, and we explained how we simplify the problem into water entry of a wedge. In this experiment, we are interested in this point, which is called spray route, the pressure distribution, the kinematics, and also the structural response of the panel. We talked about the setup. We introduced the cameras that we use for the DIC technique. This is the other camera, which is located underneath the tank. And with that, we can get the spray route propagation due to entry. So here at the left video, we can see a video captured by the bottom view camera you're looking at the spray route that is moving. Actually, this is the wedge that is descending into the water. This is a spray route which is propagating, and you can also see the pressure sensors. The spray route that we get from the bottom view camera exactly corresponds to the spray route that if we can have a camera in front view, as we had here for another test, this spray route here exactly matches with the spray route that we can capture from the bottom view camera. So we use the images from bottom view camera, we conduct the image processing, and with that, we can get the spray route propagation. For the DIC measurements, here at left, you can see a 3D view of the measurements coming from the digital image correlation. This is not the simulation data. This is exactly the measurements of the test that we just saw together. And here you're looking at the structural deformation of the panel, as well as vibration of that as it's entering into the water. So this is for the flexible composite panel. We just for the comparison, we can compare that with the similar results, but for another model that was flexible aluminum panel, it was having a lower deflection. But here you're looking at the 2D view of that measurement. So instead of the 3D view, you're having the 2D view. You can see the contour of the deflection and also the corresponding pressure data, which is exactly synchronized with that measurement. So here we have the hydrodynamics, we have the structural response. We talked about the spray route propagation in the previous slide. We studied the interaction between them, and we also studied the effect of the panels with different flexural rigidity and how the flexural rigidity affects all these measurements.
The reason why we're interested in looking at this wedge drop problem is because we can imagine a small infinitesimal slice of a high-speed planing craft that's slamming into waves, as shown in this middle diagram. In this cartoon, we can take an infinitesimal slice that's shown shaded in black, and when the vessel becomes fully or partially airborne, we can imagine this one small slice of our vessel become basically vertically falling into the water as shown in the cartoon on the bottom. The main motivation for looking at these types of problems where we have a flexible bottom is because we're interested in designing lighter boats. The reason why we want to design lighter boats is that we can use less fuel in order to power them. The boats can also travel at higher speed. This is also very useful. Even if we consider autonomous vessels or vessels that have no passengers or crew on board to drive them, it's still important to make sure that the vessel is going to remain operational and does not break. One way to decrease the weight on the structure of a vessel is to decrease the plate thickness. When we decrease the plate thickness, then now we start introducing the fact that we could have fluid structure interaction because the bottom becomes more flexible. Another important consideration when we're decreasing the weight is the fact that the plates will be very thin. This introduces potential vibration, especially if we are impacting the plates with a slamming event. This is even more important in composite materials, which are more susceptible to these types of structural vibrations after being impacted. When a structure reaches its resonance frequency, you could have large catastrophic deformations, and this can also potentially lead to failure of the vessel. What we're planning to do in the near future is to combine our experiments on the flexible wedge drop experiments and combine those with towing tank experiments that were previously conducted by some of our collaborators at the United States Naval Academy. What we'll do then is we're going to perform controlled motion experiments in our new towing tank facility, where we can force the vessel to slam into the water surface at different orientations and different speeds, and we can install flexible panels into the bottom of our hull. In collaboration with Gibbs & Cox DLBA, we are going to be installing a new towing carriage that enables us to go at faster speeds, as well as a vertical planar motion mechanism that will enable us to slam our vessel at different speeds and different orientations with the water surface. We're looking forward to these new enhancements to our towing tank facility that will be available in fall of 2021. The second project is funded by the National Science Foundation and is an exploration of structural response and reconfiguration subjected to a fluid loading. Past studies have looked at a structure in a fluid flow in water and in air. Our group is currently interested in investigating natural and active reconfiguration of flexible plates in close proximity to and interacting with a free surface. The project has many components, including the classic water entry problem that I showed you in the last project I discussed, as well as prescribed motions such as oscillating heave motions under a calm water surface. And then we'd also be using the towing tank facility in order to do a combination of these heaving motions and forward speed. The way that we will be actively controlling the reconfiguration of our panels is to use active control of the stiffness of the panel using F2MCs. This stands for Fluidic Flexible Matrix Composites. Here are the dimensions and configuration of the plate panel that we tested. There are some high-speed videos that I'm going to be showing you where we varied the drop height of the model and therefore the impact velocity, which is related to the loading that is going to be present on the plate. The models are all dropping and are time synchronized so that the keel or the apex is going to be impacting the water surface at the same time. You can see that there's large deformation because of the low stiffness in the plate panel. And we intentionally stopped the recording when the shape of the structure is nearly the same for all conditions. Here's another video that we took of some of our earlier experiments with an even more flexible set of plastic sheets. SDIC stands for Stereoscopic Digital Image Correlation. The digital part of this acronym means that we're using digital high-speed cameras as well as computers in order to post-process the results. The I is image, which stands for the individual image frames that are taken from our high-speed cameras. Now let's talk a little bit about the correlation. So what I have here on the left-hand side of this figure is a cartoon that we drew showing the location of two high-speed cameras that are looking at the same area on the plate on the bottom of our wedge. Part of these areas are overlapping. What you can see then on the right-hand side are some images taken from camera 1 in the middle column and camera 2 on the right column. In each column there are two images, one at time t equals 1, and the second one in the second row is at time equals t 2. What we have is we've sprayed the bottom of our plate with a randomized speckle pattern. From time 1 to time 2, because of the structural deformation of this plate, the speckle pattern has changed from one time to the next. And what we're doing with the correlation piece of this technique is we're trying to correlate the most probable location that a certain pattern of speckles has moved from one location to another. We can do this by breaking the image down into several smaller images and tracking the pattern from one time to the next time, and draw in vectors that show the location of those speckles from one time to the next time. This gives us a displacement field in 2 dimensions. We can perform the same type of technique with camera number 2 with the speckle patterns from the perspective that we see in camera 2. The stereoscopic part of SDIC stands for the fact that we have 2 cameras that are looking at an overlapped area. This can be thought of in the same way as your eyes. You can imagine camera 1 being your left eye, camera 2 being your right eye. If we think about this more tangibly, what I can do is I can close one of my eyes and I see the world in 2 dimensions. If I close my other eye, I see the world in 2 dimensions, but from a slightly different point of view. When I open both of my eyes, my brain is able to provide some kind of mapping algorithm in my brain that tells me how far my computer screen is away from my face. We do this as well with our stereoscopic digital image correlation, but we use math instead of our brains in order to perform these calculations. What results from that is the video that Javad showed you earlier of the deflection contour on the bottom of the plate. Javad and I would like to thank you for your interest in our lab and our research. We'd like to stay in touch, so please feel free to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or feel free to reach out with an email if you have questions about the work that we're doing in our lab. We hope to hear from you soon, and we're happy to share more results as they come. Thank you very much.